Welcome to RPG Reanimators, a podcast for GMs where we dissect horror scenarios and offer our experiences and advice to reanimate them at the table. I'm Lex.
I'm Holly.
I'm Alex.
And I'm Nathan.
In this episode, we are continuing our deep dive discussion of Impossible Landscapes, written by Dennis Detwiller for Delta Green. If you're starting here and haven't already listened to our previous episodes covering this campaign, what are you doing? Just because time doesn't exist in Carcosa doesn't mean you can just read a book in any chapter that you know what? We highly recommend starting at the top and working your way through these episodes as a series, lest you risk deep confusion and the upcoming massive campaign spoilers ahead. If you would like a by-the-book summary and primer for this section, Bud's RPG Review has several wonderful videos that we can link in the show notes of this episode. Now, without further delay, let's continue our dissection. In this episode, we will be covering The Gap, A Volume of Secret Faces, and The Missing Room. In the overarching plot of Impossible Landscapes, there is a 20-year gap between the resolution of the Night Floors and the beginnings of A Volume of Secret Faces, where the agents' lives might return to some semblance of normalcy, or they can choose to stay on the case. Technically, this section is more at the very end of the Night Floors chapter. However, we wanted to give this event in the agents' lives a bit of special interest here. What do you think should be really the focus of The Gap whenever you are running this at your table?
Definitely how the Carcosan mythos never really left the agents, even though they finished with the Night Floors chapter. They basically dusted off their hands and they pretty much think, oh, we're done with it. But no, The Gap is there for a little bit of unsettling information where it's like, there's just a little bit to go on and not enough to really have them chase down rabbit holes, but enough to tell them that they're not safe.
Yeah, and it's a really good time to just show off just how bad being a Delta Green is, because everyone is supposed to take on being a damaged veteran. Everybody loses bonds. And especially if you were playing an older character in the first one, you're really getting up there in years in Volume of Secret Faces. So at least when I like The Gap the most is when it's just showing how miserable it is in the in-between.
Yeah, I think this is really kind of, it feels like one of the only times in Delta Green you actually get to not just use the bond mechanic, because lots of folks do, but like really focus on it, make that what you're doing.
Yeah. I wholeheartedly agree. And this is one of the parts while reading the book, I was shaking my head because I have the excerpt here. Treat this 20-year gap as a special home vignette, which should take no more than a few minutes. Each agent chooses 3 home pursuit and the handler summarizes the outcomes. To me, this feels like so much wasted opportunity to really build a lot of character depth and investment, because the agents have been really strictly on the case in terms of the Night Floors, everything in the McAllister, and this campaign is one of the few opportunities you have to really involve their bonds and make them feel like human people so that you can then subvert all of that normalcy into more surreal horror later. That whenever I ran it, I tried something different, squared it away with my group to say, I want to dedicate an entire session to The Gap. I broke the 20 years into 3 roughly equivalent chunks of like 6 or 7 years at a time, made a little chart dividing this into columns for each agent and then rows for each of these time chunks that would be punctuated by real world historical events at the time. Going from 95 to 2001, we're going to cover Y2K. You can cover 9/11. Going into the next gap, you can have the 2008 housing crisis start affecting some of your agents based on what they're doing. Then I added special other events tailored to each of the player characters that would pop up at some point during some of these 3 time chunks. Things like their spouses or other bonds getting roped into certain elements from Impossible Landscapes. certain real-world tragedies that happened, a parent passing away of old age, things like that to keep the players on their toes. And by sort of shifting focus between the agents and letting them say what their characters would be doing in this chunk of time, you can not only let them think about how their character might grow and respond, but also throw them curveballs. Because if they're planning, well, I'm just going to do therapy for 3 times, that way I'm going to max out my SAN and then go back into volume, everything's going to be great. But then I talk about how their wife happened to win some tickets to a movie, and now they're gone, and they're left with this ticket to something called A Song Before Travel. That can really change their plans and help them feel like they never really escaped any of it at all.
Excuse me, I can't go to the movie. I have therapy.
I would simply go to therapy,
Yes.
said no Delta Green agent.
7 days a week.
It surprises me that they didn't take advantage of the fact that the gap spans over one of the most major parts of the Delta Green timeline, which is the restructuring of Delta Green and the introduction of the program versus the Outlaws. Like, I mean, maybe you don't do anything with that, right? But I'm surprised that they just kind of left that on the table and didn't do anything with that at all. And I think that there's even some, scenarios you could probably pull into this to kind of keep that thread going. But yeah, I think the idea is right to maybe lull them into that false sense of security, but like slowly start planting the seeds that they eventually realize like they're not safe, and they never were.
Yeah, fully agree. This can also be a way for you to drop in NPCs who will show up later and have them seem like mundane NPCs that they can encounter. Nathan had a great idea, whatever I was saying, that Holly, your character, was wanting to do therapy, and I just made up a random name, and he should have said, man, it's too bad she didn't go visit Dr. Dallin. I hear he's a great therapist. And just if you seem like you make that up and then all of a sudden he's there, that's a huge oh shit moment that your life has never actually left the web of Carcosa.
Yep.
You can also start using the gap to start introducing the corrupting influences on everyone's bonds.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
But just the start. Don't go too heavy-handed, because save that for chapter 3.
Yeah. I think that the gap should really highlight, some weirdness, maybe some spikes if you want to have the bonds disappear, but also just show that the agents' lives are returning to a painful mundanity. In the 2008 crisis, they might lose their house. How do you respond to that? And how does their lives change before they happen to get called in again? This is the one thing that they're familiar with. There's a lot that GMs can really do to capitalize on some character RP in these moments that I really think would lead to more satisfying campaigns overall. However, as a completely different note, I know quite a few GMs will tend to run extra operations in this time. I was wondering if y'all had any thoughts on doing that, because I have sort of mixed feelings.
I feel like you'd have to be careful if you really want these characters to persist in the next chapter, that it's not something super lethal, right?
Those are my mixed feelings. Yeah, I feel like I would have to pull some punches, because it would be weird to kill an agent before actual big plans would be happening for them.
Yeah, I probably wouldn't run a incredibly lethal scenario, but something like Sweetness or Victim of the Art are fairly straightforward, sanity damaging perhaps, but not immediately lethal sort of scenarios.
I feel like the ending of Victim is kind of lethal. It may take
better. Yeah, I see what you're saying, but I mean, as the GM, it's up to you to decide how lethal it is. That's an easy one to have it be less lethal and more, a moral choice that they have to make. And, that's a good one there that involves some themes of like children, which your agents probably have sometime in here. There's family relationships to explore between there, and it's pretty easy to tie some of that stuff in near the end. If you wanted to be like, see, even that, you weren't getting away from the King in Yellow.
100% agree with Nathan here. Also, you can cherry pick shotgun scenarios that focus more on mental challenges over, physical challenges.
There's another scenario that I personally haven't read or played, but I know several folks have mentioned running Unremembered during this time as well. I think it's a Call of Cthulhu scenario that you can adapt.
I don't think I would recommend that.
Okay. I know nothing, so I have no thoughts on it.
Because, like, spoilers.
If you don't want to hear spoilers for the Call of Cthulhu scenario Unremembered, skip forward 10 or 15 seconds. It's just a blip.
They go up against the King in Yellow.
Yeah, it's pretty.
They fight
on
the
the
King in
nose.
Yellow.
Okay.
Yeah. So, no, don't do that.
Yeah, having it be a bit more of a different thing makes the return more shocking. You know, like they might get the impression. I mean, if your players are really savvy, they're just going to go, well, we're playing a campaign. It's probably going to be the same guy in each scenario. But, you know, if they're not up to date, you might have a fun sort of moment in this upcoming one where they realize, like, oh, no, it's the first one all over again, which would be super cool as a player.
I don't hate the idea of letting players think that, you know, they're safe, that like their time with Delta Green is done. Like I can go on and live a normal life and it's been 20 years and it's almost like I can pretend that that never happened to me in the first place. Like it was a bad dream or just a weird book I read 20 years ago. And then all
But
of
now
a sudden
the nightmares really start.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then it like slowly kind of draws you back in, you know, and you're like, oh, Delta Green does not contact you in those 20 years interim. Like you don't hear from them. You don't get any missions and you feel like life is returning back to normal again.
Yeah. Personally, I really like that method because, like you said, you can have this agent start reattaching themselves to their lives. And then it can lead to some character building moments. But then as they get that message from Exeter, quote unquote, it'll really emphasize these feelings of foreboding and inescapability as they are getting dragged in, while their characters may be thinking, well, I guess that was it. I guess that was the end of it.
Yeah, and if you follow the steps by steps, which, you know, you don't have to, but there's a section on estranged bonds too, which is a fun way of being like, no, there is some bond on your character that's just going to be different. And that can be really tough for players that make a, you know, complete set that first one, right? They're like, okay, I've got my sibling, my partner, and my kid. And then you say, okay, one of those people is alienated, betrayed, or dead. You need to choose one of them, and you need to then make a new bond, which, I mean, you're probably going to have related to King in Yellow in some fashion, right? Like, they'll have a weird last name that seems weirdly demonic or some shit. You know, there'll be more of a draw in, but I think that also disguises the whole, like, are all of them dead because of the King in Yellow? No, probably not. But one of them in there is.
Yeah. I think that this is something the GM can do with a little bit of messaging players before the session and then bringing it up somewhat spontaneously during the session. I recall messaging my players that, you know, you need to tell me which one of your bonds is the most special, and I wouldn't kill that one. But from the other ones, then there might be some sort of accident. There may be some breakdown between them. And that at least lets me know these ones are fair game to cause some strain. And again, I really want players thinking on their feet and feeling that more spontaneous growth and life goes on during this gap session.
Yeah, I like what you said, too, about doing it in kind of waves of years, because there are some cases where they'll be like, oh, the agent decides to stay on the case. It's better if, you know, you have everybody do one batch of years, time skip, do another batch, and they can kind of decide as they go based on what everybody's doing. Otherwise, you might have the first person do 3 things and like therapy, and the next person goes, oh, I find a massive clue. Well, the first person might have gone, well, I would have. Yeah, it's like, I would have done that.
Exactly. I have run too many games whenever I say, okay, you're going to do this, this, and this. Oh, that sounds more interesting. Can I do that? I already said you were doing this. So letting it be a little up in the air, the agents can contact each other over time. In my first run of it, it was very funny because one agent stayed on the case, found a really big clue with a crit success, mailed packages with this clue to all the other agents, and then fucked off to therapy and like just worked on himself for a while, leaving everyone else to suffer. The other, who it was his spouse, disappeared in the Song Before Travel incident. He went from planning out, this very personal kind of home building thing to suddenly he is wrecked and staying on the case for the remainder and trying to find his spouse. So you can still bring surprises in for your players without it needing to be sort of that in the moment character based role play.
I also don't hate hashing this out individually with players if you have the time, because then it's like a true, you come back together and they don't know what has been going on in each other's lives in the last 20 years.
Close table.
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah. Well, like you meet individually with each of your players, like I said, if you have time.
Mm-hmm.
And that can be like another thing when they are all back together. It's like, what the fuck have you been doing for the last 20 years? I don't even know.
Yeah.
I like that a lot.
What would y'all recommend for players who lose a character in the Night Floors, or they stay in the Night Floors? What do you do with them in that 20-year gap?
What I've done before, because I've actually had to run this when I ran for Into the Darkness, we skipped Night Floors, right? Because they'd already played it. So what I would suggest is to kind of keep those new characters there with secrets or regrets, sort of background things. So you might ask them like, okay, how does your character know these other people? Try and start tying them in closer than you might normally with a Delta Green scenario, right? Like if you're coming in where like I'm a new character, you might even go like, okay, you guys have had a Delta Green operation. We're not going to go through it. Something terrible happens. Like, what kind of thing happened to you guys?
I think for me, I would have that player create their own character and kind of just do a little life path building where we can say, what was your first Delta Green operation? You have also had a gap during this time, sort of go through a similar experience with them. But then as that character gets introduced to the others, that's when I love the element in this campaign where you can have the replacement PC start having the memories of the deceased agent because they are in their role now. And so start feeding them like, oh, you just had this memory with this person, or this person is familiar, and can be a way to tie back into that surreality as they're actually getting into volume.
Would you recommend running, like, let's say you lose one agent and everyone else continues? Would you recommend running that person, like have them create a new agent and running them through a like light King in Yellow scenario that gives them that exposure that then they can come in and like, this seems familiar to me? So they don't have to do the, like, I have to pretend like I don't know what anybody's talking about.
No, I agree with Holly here. I would either do that or have them go through, Delta Green operations to be a damaged veteran. However, insert like motifs of King in Yellow throughout.
Yeah.
Once again, not enough to go down a rabbit hole, but enough that it seems familiar when they start the new chapter. They're the understudy.
Yeah, that might be a good kind of hint at static protocol too, right? Like that agent, that might be a chance for them to almost see some King in Yellow stuff. And then their previous team or handler goes, stop. Nope, you're not dealing with this. I don't want to die today. I don't want to have static come down on my head. What's that? Don't worry about it. Don't worry about it. It won't be relevant for another chapter.
That was something that I discussed during the prologue a bit, but I think that GM should really feel encouraged to work with players on their character's backstory. That way you can seed and insert some King in Yellow motifs, or at least things that will show up later as ways to give that character some more tie-in into the universe. And I think maybe giving some more overt seeds that the others would recognize or pick up on. So, maybe they did have, their pediatrician was Dr. Friend or something like that as a way to give some stronger tie-ins that will show up a little more immediately. Because I think Night Floors is the fun ramp up of things. And then for volume, we need you to be at least a little bit on the ball as we then slide down into the abyss.
I think the like overarching advice we have for this, right, is just don't skip over it. Don't gloss over it. You know, reward your players for creating a rich backstory, a rich like life with their bonds.
Yeah. If your players like to role play their characters, which I hope they would in a campaign, don't skip over this because there is a lot of fun role play potential and growth here you will not find elsewhere in Delta Green. Next, we're going to get into a volume of Secret Faces. This is one of the larger chapters in this whole campaign book that features numerous different areas and events, both in this world and not so much, that the agents can explore, and actually might show up a fair amount whenever they get into the third act of this play. So overall, could we get a general overview of volume, the high points and keynotes of this chapter, as well as some of the main areas that agents may encounter before we dive into each of them in depth?
I mean, the high level overview is the agents are called back in to Delta Green to investigate some missing patients. All of that said with heavy quotations, because in reality, not so much. But the Dorchester house is a psychiatric house that basically all the Delta Green agents throughout the years that need psychiatric help get sent to. In theory, it's pretty nice. In reality, they sent somebody there at some point that they should not have, and it has been corrupted by the King in Yellow's influence. So, of course, as the agents start to investigate, they're pulled back into this kind of nightmare as they realize they're the missing patients. And if they're any good at anagrams, they probably figured that out session 1. I don't recommend it. At some point, they will decide, hey, we should leave this asylum, which
I would simply leave.
Usually that's about 2 seconds in.
And that's when you go, you didn't say the magic word.
You need to talk to demons. So yeah, they'll get help from demons and then run away from a clown avatar of the King in Yellow who's going to dance at them real mean like.
Dance, monkey, dance. Yeah, that's pretty much it in terms of broad strokes. There's lots of distinct locations, some much closer than others, that we can get into in some more depth here. But first, what would you say are the beating hearts of this chapter in particular?
Hospital horror.
Definitely.
Right?
Yeah.
There's a lot of opportunities for great hospital horror. Needles forcing people to look at screens with the Clockwork Orange eyes being open. All sorts of gross stuff like that.
Yeah, the motif of never having escaped, even though you thought you did.
Yeah, I think the rug pull, right? That we're doing all this research, we're doing all this figuring out, and look where it got us.
Right back to the beginning.
Let's cover some of our overall strengths and limitations of this chapter. How do we feel about volume as written? What are some things that we really liked about this chapter overall?
All right, so one thing to note is that this is another sandbox, just like Night Floors, although I would say it's not as concise as Night Floors, because there's an area in, I believe, out of state.
It's in Las Vegas, which
LA,
I'm going to talk about that a lot.
Yeah.
I like to call it lost wages.
Yeah, it's in Las Vegas, right? There's a lot of different houses you can visit, which are all around. People might even end up going back to the McAllister building.
Yeah.
And that's something you just have to be ready for.
I think the overall flow of Impossible Landscapes to me moves from open to narrow again and again. This is one of the harsher bottlenecks in the campaign overall as you try to funnel your agents somehow into the Dorchester at night, which we'll talk about a little bit in limitations. But while this is a sandbox, this is certainly a very expansive one, as Alex mentioned. And I will say that it has lots of very interesting locations. I might say too many interesting locations, because kind of like how the players are blitzed with so much random stuff whenever they're investigating the McAllister building, there are kind of more places than they have time or bandwidth to go and visit. This has one of my favorite gross instances in Samagina's house, and I swear I'm going to get someone to drink that tea one day. That was the worst thing I have ever read, and I desperately want somebody to fall for it.
And if you can't get them in chapter 2, you might be able to get them in chapter 3. So don't sweat it if you miss some stuff.
That's very true.
Yeah, I think to your point, Lex, don't try and put everything in here. You can. Greenbox Gaming, I've mentioned before, they like really got all of this chapter, and it worked well. It just took a long time, right? Like it goes from being part 2 to realistically 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and then you have the ending on. So kind of constrain it to what you find interesting. And realistically, if you don't use any of this, it's not the end of the world. Like, I agree, Lex, it's a funnel. If they don't go to the Dorchester, okay. Nothing there is technically necessary for the end.
I have some mixed feelings on that, but broadly can agree that don't feel like you have to cover all of these materials, or that something is a loss if the agents skip a bunch of stuff that is interesting. There is just a lot of information here, and not necessarily all of it is worth committing to memory. I have no idea what the other staff of the Dorchester are up to, except someone has a dead body in a bag, another one goes spelunking in his car. There's a lot of other details. Don't worry about it. Go with the flow of what your players are interested in, and then just cover that, because this is where the book is kind of laid out weird, as Alex mentioned. They are very likely to cover some of these areas in chapter 3 whenever they get back into the real world. So we're going to stick around in chapter 2 to cover what is here, and then maybe refer back to some of these things in the next episode when we're talking about Like a Map Made of Skin. Are there any other things that we really liked about this chapter that we want to cover before what we disliked?
I think I may have mentioned this in the prologue. I think Dr. Barbas is one of the most interesting NPCs in a Delta Green campaign, and is really fun to play. Luckily, he's kind of one of those NPCs that you can't really miss, since he's the handler that brings everyone together. But I think he's a good example of a layered character, where he is an agent. He is a agent of the King in Yellow. He is a human being. There's all these different sort of roles he takes. Oh yeah, he's a demon too. Yeah, and most of the time people end up shooting him.
I think you put it really well in one of our previous episodes when you said, like, the agents, when they see Barbas, they're looking at themselves in 10 years, in 5 years, in 1 year, you know, like it's their future. I like that this chapter has a couple of puzzles that reward players if they're clever. The anagrammed names, which delighted and infuriated me in equal measure, because I could tell they were an anagram of something, but I never worked out that they were what Lex did with it, and we'll get back to that. And then the invitation from Barbas to meet him in the room, like the little dots on the invitation, like it's very rewarding as a player when you latch onto those moments. And I don't find that there's a lot of that in Call of Cthulhu and Delta Green. Like, some scenarios do have genuine puzzles that you feel like you're actually figuring them out. And this is one of them, and I like that.
I also really enjoy, if you have a lot of veteran DG players who have attended so many handler meetup scenes, this one's gonna ring alarm bells for sure.
Yeah.
And that's such a treat, because it's a subversion of expectations.
Well, and I think Dr. Barbas is a good one too, of he's not he's dangerous, right? He can be dangerous, but he's also very human. So you can have that scene where if your players immediately go there's something wrong with this guy, we got to take him out. That's fine. Now you have a cool cleanup kind of scene beyond that. It still leads in to this really cool scenarios. You have to dig into okay, why the heck was this guy contacting us in the first place? What was his deal? And guess what? They all end up in the same place.
Yeah. I think that overall in this campaign, there are a lot of NPCs who are concerning, but not immediately threatening. So it can give some more trigger happy agents pause of like, should I kill this guy or is he just fucking weird? And so they'll be on their toes, but still willing to engage with the world a bit more to find out if they actually can pull that trigger. Some of them will still do it anyway, though.
Oh, yeah.
But now, are there any things that we didn't really like about this chapter in particular?
Yep. All right. So on one hand, handler rules is written, campaign is written. You really want to get the agents into the Dorchester house. The ways that can be done are very heavy-handed and can feel really cheap to the players. Like, let's say the lion, or let's say just walking into the house at night. You really have to juggle in time the pacing of it, because you don't want them to go into the Dorchester house at night like session 1 of this chapter, because then you just miss everything. So I believe it's up to like a skilled GM to introduce more elements that will take the attention away from going to the Dorchester house at night. Also, you also have to be really careful of the wording when you actually do go into the Dorchester house, because you still want the agents to have agency, no pun intended there. So, for example, right, there's a difference between saying you have been here all along versus you feel like you've been here all along, because subconsciously your players are going to think, oh, okay, I have to role play this out now. But if you say you feel, or it feels like, then there's room for them to actually not be shoved into that role.
Yeah, I think my biggest critiques of this chapter are the super hard bottleneck into the Dorchester. I am curious, Nathan, how you ran this without them going into the Dorchester at night, because I do feel like them interacting with Mr. Wilde, in my opinion, is one of the more crucial elements to this here, because he is a treasure trove of information for them in terms of giving guidance on how to actually progress through.
Right.
This is the chapter you really get to reiterate the only way out is through. They thought that they were done with this and then got pulled back in again. So I think trying to emphasize that you're never going to get out, and these sorts of things will keep happening unless you can try to punch through at the bottom. And there's just limited opportunities to do that outside of the Dorchester at night. But the bottleneck is hard, and it can just feel bad if you try to brute force it.
I'd agree with that.
So it takes some finesse to try to pull off without just seeming blunt, like shoving them into the next area.
I mean, you can be a little blunt, but you can disguise it a bit, right? Like, I've had cases where some players went up against the lion, right? And the lion doesn't kill them, because you could kill them pretty easily with it. It hooks them with a bunch of fish hooks and then runs away as they drift on. They're unconscious. Well, the other agents are going to probably go and try and rescue them. It's not subtle, but it makes sense from a story side. And to go back to your point of like, what do you do if they don't go to the Dorchester at night? I think you said it right? The key thing they need to do is have somebody inform them that, hey, you're not getting out of this unless you go deeper. And you are going to have to do that. And Mr. Wilde, he's a wild card. And he's pretty easy to have
Thumbs down.
Show up elsewhere, have an agent show up. You might have to finesse the scene to be different, but I could absolutely see a cool bit where you get this invitation from a multimillionaire that's like, hey, join me at this opera in the downtown Boston. I'm sure there's something. And they go there and they see the same scene, and Mr. Wilde is, right next to them explaining it.
Oh,
You don't have to be in the Dorchester to get that info.
that is just giving me an idea, though, as what if they attend this play and the characters are playing as the agents who go into a stage version of the Dorchester. There is a scene change and they would be watching kind of what would have happened if they went inside, but then they turn and they're back in the theater again. Like, just make it the world topsy-turvy around them.
Yeah, Mr. Wild's like, that's what you should have done. If you were good players, that's what you would have done.
Going back to your note, Nathan, about making it clear to your players that like the only way out is through. I think that's a really important thing because, you know, from the perspective of a player, especially if they've been like forcefully vectored into the Dorchester, and it's like, no, you're stuck here now. In my mind, and I speak as a player in this experience, like my objective is to leave.
Yeah.
It is not to dive deeper. It is not to talk to people. It's to get the fuck out of here because they're trapping me here. And so like making sure that your players understand the only way out is through. You have to look. You have to look at the yellow sign. You have to investigate.
And to be clear, like if we look at the corruption mechanics, Holly, you're right. The way to deal with it is not engage, right? Like the entire meta narrative of this is the play lying to them and being like, nope, you got to make me. You got to come deeper. You got to keep going. And I think that's a really fun sort of pit trap that they're falling in deeper and deeper.
And speaking of diving deeper, let's transition then into the deep dive section of this analysis, starting back with the initial briefing with Dr. Barbas. How do you want to run this for agents? What are some of your keynotes that you really want to emphasize?
I think that the meeting with Barbas, it's that push-pull that we keep saying over and over and over again of the pacing. It's like you want to clue your players in that he is a weird dude, but not tip it so far that they're like, just let's nuke this guy right now, here and right now.
I think that the setup for all of the briefing in this section is really well done. In that, the agents receive an invitation after, they've been hinted at invitations with DeCraig, and then they can go in. The agents are rewarded for being suspicious and investigating it. Like Holly was saying, they can investigate the letter. That's a super cool, multi-layered handout you can give your agents. And
you can make it in person and have the letter inside of the invitation. That's what I did.
Yeah, that's super cool.
Make sure you give them the picture too, because I've had players that, they'll read the text, but if you send them the picture, they go, wait, is that a peeling corner? Let me get in on that. And that's so much fun when they go, I rip it off and you go, okay, cool. Here's this other horrible stuff. No.
And importantly, they received this letter a few days before the actual briefing, so you can give them a chance to scope out the Gateway Bridges restaurant, because it's a super mundane place. But then whenever they find that napkin again, if they go to wait at the bar, chef's kiss moment, as that's a big, oh, fuck.
You get the payoff.
But there's nothing spooky about this place. It's just, how did this get here? And so then leading into the actual briefing itself, as we've mentioned, Barbas is a very fun NPC to roleplay, especially as he keeps taking his pills out of the clown cigarette case. And, he's a weird little dude and should be causing every single warning bell in your agent's brains to be going off. So they are super suspicious at getting this. They get the list of, air quotes, escaped patients, which, as Holly was mentioning earlier, something that I did and had a ton of fun with is I made a custom handout for this section and made anagrams of the actual players' names rather than the characters or anything else that's easily detectable for King and Yellow fans, based on the fact that, if they made replacement characters, that player is still going to get roped into it.
That's cool.
So that can subvert expectations a bit. I had an oh shit moment as I explained that in the final session. So that was a lot of fun. But anyway, so they get this information, they get the seer phone, and everything is more or less par for the course for an actual briefing. It's just so many things around it are suspicious that they can't really let sleeping dogs lie.
Yeah, and I think if you look at the letter, right, there's the very obvious, like, help me sign in there from Barbas.
Mm-hmm.
The Operation India Moon is a anagram for daimonian, which is like this voice that warns you about wrong decisions, apparently.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Smart people Googled this, by which I mean somebody Googled it. It's
Yeah.
like a Socratic thing. But right, like, this is, at least in my mind, the Delta Green side of Barbas trying to warn the players.
Mm-hmm.
So out of this, I completely agree. They should get the feeling that this is wrong. And that's part of what makes him so fun to play is you get to play this guy that's just like, no, it's just the patience. You just have to find the patience. But if you can underlie it with a little bit of him trying to warn them subtly.
One way that you can potentially do that is by having him shudder through most of his words as if, he's kind of forced to say things.
Yeah.
But have him shake his head no as he is telling them, yes, this is the mission. These are the objectives.
Yeah, nice.
Make it very slight and subtle so that it adds to a feeling of uncomfortability. But in hindsight, they're going to say, like, he was trying to convey to us.
And that's really fun if they kill him.
I think that, like, especially if they pick up on the help me, that makes Barbas a very sympathetic character, really.
Mm-hmm.
If you're talking to them like he's being held at gunpoint while telling them this mission, like, yeah, it does. It makes him sympathetic.
And there really is no way to get him out of there, too. That's the other really sad point.
He's
like,
a lost cause.
Even if they go, yeah, we kill him, and I feel bad later, that's still probably the biggest mercy you can give the poor guy.
Yeah.
Unlucky.
Truly.
And so one of the key items that agents will receive in this scene is the Seer phone, the old satellite brick phone, which is a lot of fun as once agents can realize that they can sort of abuse this for wild sums of money or things that they may need, although it may not be as convenient as all that. How have y'all run it in the past? Do you have any advice for other GMs in running it if your agents try to make use of this?
Usually, at least for us, hits their warning bells as it's a very weird thing to use, right? Like, just like Exeter, it's weird. So when they start asking it for stuff and they start getting it, usually the agents are like, we probably shouldn't be doing this, huh? Let's check out this phone. It's made of dirt. No. But I mean, it's if they want something and they use the phone, it's fun to give it to them. And they can start asking questions about why it was so easy later.
I think for me, it's important to give them the thing that they are requesting, but make it feel bad when they get it.
Yeah.
Like I had one agent ask for, I don't know, $50,000 or something. And so then they get the crate with all of the labels and things all over it. It's a fun description in the book. And the money has blood on it. And it's like, oh, somebody definitely died in order to get this.
You could definitely monkey's paw it.
Yeah.
Yeah, you need money? Oh, well, a relative just died and left you an inheritance.
Yeah, that was another one that they requested a chopper to come pick them up from the top of the Trivellino Mall at this time. Whenever they were dead set, pun intended, on going in there. And so they're like, well, we'll need an escape route because clearly we're going to be able to get on the roof. And I had it prepped that it was going to be someone who was being blackmailed by Mr. Wild. Yeah. And if they got in, it'd be like, please, can you let my wife and kids go? Make them feel real bad for actually calling that in. As Alex said, you can monkey's paw it 100%. That way you don't have agents that are like wishing for outrageous things. I don't know, maybe someone eventually knocks on the door and says like, hey, give that back.
Hey man, you got to cut that out.
Yeah, the king has a budget. Come on.
The royal treasuries disapproves of your orders.
And then once they get their briefing, there are several places that the agents are probably going to go to. As we mentioned with Barbas, he's really weird and intriguing, so there's a possibility that agents may follow him. They may go straight to the Dorchester, or they may go into some other places in and about. Let's go ahead and start with, but before all of that, they're going to need to check into their hotel. This is another moment in the chapter where it kind of assumes that they are going to get a room at the Boxer Hotel. It's another bizarre bottleneck that I think is a bit odd. How strictly do you enforce this in your games, or how do you kind of slide agents into the Boxer Hotel, which can then get them exposed to the missing room, which we'll cover in a bit?
I mean, could you simply just say, like, with this invitation, like a room has been booked, 2 rooms have been booked for them at the Boxer Hotel. So it's like,
Easy.
DG's picking up the bill.
Oh my
I don't
God,
know.
that's so good. I didn't even think of that. And that's so much easier. I was like struggling over this thing where I'm like, there's some kind of a business convention in town. So this was the only place that you can get, because your character was the one that made the reservation. So I just said, like, these are the only ones you could find because there's conventions in town. But honestly, yeah, give them room keys, because it seems like a regular Delta Green
Operation, yeah.
invitation at first. So they can check in there.
It depends too. If your players are already like, this is wrong, this is a setup, I like having it be that case where it's like, yeah, there's no other places. You all make reservations, and the only place you can get is the Boxer Hotel, and it's all rooms next to each other. And the players go, well, that's weird. And they still stay there. And it's like, great, okay. But, it's another weird thing where they're going like, there's something deeply wrong with everything we're doing. And they make terrible decisions. Like, if I got told, here's your hotel room, it's super creepy, I would simply not go to that hotel room.
Well, I guess I'm sleeping in my car.
Give them some penalties if they want to stay in their car too. It's been 20 years. Nobody's young anymore. So yeah, they're going to have some movement penalties afterwards.
Joke's on you, Lex. My character was 5 at Night Floors.
You just know there's going to be some agent that's just like, all right, I go find a family, kill them, and stay in their house.
Nice.
Okay.
We found that agent here, everyone. Yeah, whenever you give them their rooms to the Boxer Hotel, I really tried to make it very subtle and just, okay, you've got room 613, 614, and then on the other side, you got 615 and 617, and not make a big deal out of it, because at this point, the agents won't really suspect 616 as being some kind of, I don't know, cool S number for the King in Yellow. I don't know why it keeps showing up, but it's fun that it does.
It's a demonic number.
Oh, okay. I thought that was 666.
The origin.
It
It is, I believe, prior to 666.
The hipster is 666.
Are you going to actually me? Okay, fine.
Yes, it's it's an early variant of 666. So
and then we have 67 these days. Okay. And so by this point, you can get them into the hotel. I really wouldn't have them seed any weirdness at first, but then after they can explore a location or two, assuming that they can go back to the hotel for a night's rest, that's when I would start having some weirdness pop up regarding the missing room. Are there any notes or advice that you would have to seed initial weirdness or manifestations around the hotel to try to point agents toward the missing room? Or do you just put a spotlight next to it and let them decide?
usually when you say you notice there's no room 616 and the concierge doesn't know what you're talking about, that's enough that they start going like,
That's weird
okay.
enough, yeah.
Yeah. I got to get in there.
What if your players just kind of gloss over the fact that there is no 616, right? Do you
I guess
somehow
they're
point it
too
out?
dumb to play then. No, I'm kidding.
Right.
I'm kidding.
I think Alex has it right. Yeah. Okay. You want to not pay attention. It's not technically a critical clue. Like you don't
Yeah.
need to look
It's
into
just an
VSO.
Exeunt, right?
Yeah.
Gesundheit. Yeah, I think that the missing room is one of the more skippable locations that if they come across it, cool, there's some fun clues in there. But if not, you can lead them into it later as they're exploring. Maybe they just stumble into it. I know a couple of times with my agents in the night floors, I will have them enter what is the missing room, but they don't really know anything about it at this time. So I'm going to note in the future that this seems really familiar. But then, yeah, this is one that it's a great base that you can set up for your agents that will eventually turn on them, like everything in this world. Okay, I think we've nailed the Boxer Hotel. Now, do we want to cover Dorchester House by day or Barbas's house?
Let's talk Dorchester House by day because they'll probably go there right away, right? Like that's the mission, quote unquote. At least from when I run it, usually they go, Marbus is weird. Let's check out the hospital at least.
My agents wouldn't touch the Dorchester with a 39 and a half foot pole until I was just like, guys, there's nothing else you can find unless you go in. So tell me about the Dorchester House's history, because this whole thing isn't a farce. It actually was part of Delta Green and has a little bit of a transformational history, not unlike the Lundeen House.
Yeah, it has a weird history. It's like an old schoolhouse at some point, gets remodeled into a psych hospital, and now it exists as a resource for Delta Green to use for their broken ass agents. There's some crazy like security, like military grade security and things like that. So
yeah, I really liked how the Dorchester House is set up as the Dorchester School, because there is this weird level of infantilization you can put on your agents as they're going through, because there are lockers in the hallway that they need to put their belongings into, and that they kind of feel like a child again, nostalgic and going through these hallways that remind them of school. And then it's juxtaposed with this harsh military technical hospital equipment that is around as well.
Yeah, it's good to have that, though, because once they hit this at night, they're going to have that question of, have I just been a patient here this whole time?
It's one of the times that you can note, this is familiar. Everything feels so familiar to me.
And they might go and say, when I put my gun in that locker, was I just putting my shoes in the lock? Like, you know, that they might start looking back and asking if anything they've played so far in this scenario has been real, which is very fun.
And there's also a lot of interesting NPCs in here.
I remember reading this chapter and going, man, for like a place that exists for Delta Green to dump their broken agents, there are no Delta Green people here. I was like, that'd be fun to like run into some actual agents that, but I don't know. That's just my 2 cents.
Sure.
But it's like, there's no actual Delta Green people in this hospital.
Yeah, no real current ones too.
Yeah, it's Leland Fuller is it's the closest DG one that they have, but you can only find him at night because he's gone too deep. I think that maybe that could be something interesting if you wanted to see that some other, like Agent Marcus or other past DG agents did get sent here, but they are kept in solitary confinement or some kind of weird situation at night because they're too dangerous to actually be let back out during the day or something.
Or you just use agents that your players have played in previous operations.
Oh, that's fun.
Oh, that's
which
fun.
Then persists the idea. It's like you are trapped here.
Yeah. And I think that's yet another case of it's kind of fun if your players do start asking, like, wait, I thought this was supposed to be Delta Green. Why is no one Delta Green here? It's like, was it? Or did you tell yourself that this is the place where you, as a secret agent, get to hide out and you're just insane?
Yeah.
Yeah, you can really gaslight the hell out of your players' characters.
Oh, yeah.
Players, both.
Dorchester House is like the best gas lamping area of this whole campaign, because that's whenever you really get to say, like, did you though? Did you really?
Yeah. There's actually a good moment in an all right like first person shooter called The Darkness 2 where the main character is put into an Iron Maiden and then they like pass out or whatever, and they wake up in the asylum, like in the janitor's closet, and then the orderly is like, wow, it looks like you're all scratched up. It looks like you're in an Iron Maiden. And it's like, holy shit.
So if we look at the staff, though, I was curious, have any of you had, so Dallin is the main guy in charge, right? He's a demon too, you know how it goes. And he's probably the point of contact that your players are going to meet and chat with. Have you ever had it where they've met him before? Because it is possible.
Yeah, they've done like a facility tour.
No, I meant like
in the 20-year gap.
Yes.
Oh, in Night
Or
Floors.
in that. Like, have you run it where they've met
with the
him
Boston
before?
Red Sox windbreaker?
Yeah.
I think I tried it in my first run of it, and it was a really unsuccessful manifestation, because anytime you have something that says this is a regular person who is not
Yeah.
going to engage with the agents and is going to run away and can't be stopped before he opens a door that the agents
Before he gets
cannot go
shot.
through.
Yeah.
It keeps running up against player agency, and it wasn't great. I wouldn't use it, honestly.
Yeah. Didn't hit enough of a memorable bell.
Mm-hmm.
If you do have Dallin be, say, like the therapist that the agent has seen during this 20-year gap, does Dallin recognize them?
Ooh.
I think so. I think Dallin's briefing is really interesting from a GM's roleplay perspective because you are tasked with playing a character who is trying to play a character. Because to Dallin's current mind in the day, these are the escaped patients, and they are very dangerous and unstable. They believe this narrative with every fiber of their being, and you are told to play along with it until you can get them to stay inside. This is a matter for his safety and everyone else's. So that's with the initial meeting in his office with the, I love the display case with all of the stones and things in it. He has a very, very pretty office that you can describe that also feels very out of place. And that if he sees them, I would be like, it's so nice to see you again. And depending on how they interact, if they are less than pleasant, it'll be like, it's okay. Forget that I said anything. Let's talk about these missing patients.
You guys did check your weapons in, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I like that.
Or you could always play off of the like doctor-patient confidentiality. I think like it's discouraged for therapists to like acknowledge that they recognize their patients in like a public setting.
That's a good point.
Sure.
So he's like, like doesn't treat them like any different or acknowledge it. And if your agent is like, oh, Dr. Dallin, and he's like, oh, have we met before? I don't know. Just a thought. Just continuing the gas lamping.
And then besides this briefing, they have a lot of other staff within the Dorchester to try and interact with. One of my personal favorites is Esther Samogita. I made her a much bigger character in my second run of this because I had so much fun playing her as a very maternal figure who keeps setting off these weird alarm bells in every one of the agents.
Yeah, I think of the orderlies and people working there, she's definitely the most fleshed out too. Like she even has a house.
Yeah.
Dr. Dallin doesn't have a house.
He has
Yeah,
her own
you can't find
location.
it.
Yeah.
There's a
Pointedly.
bookshop there now.
Yeah.
Yeah, in terms of the orderlies, be prepared to just throw them out if your players aren't interested in them.
Yeah.
Like in my campaign run, the orderly with the bag, they were extremely interested in the bag, so much that I believe it's Bryce.
Yeah, that sounds right.
They took his bag. One of my agents took his bag and kept it for the rest of the campaign.
Did he ask the kid questions?
Yes.
That's awesome. There's a body in the bag, and you can ask it questions and it'll whisper back answers, which is not great.
That
really.
agent respected the bag's wishes and never looked inside and just fed him teeth. They fed the bag teeth.
That's good.
Ooh.
That's fun.
That sounds very mentally stable.
Mm-hmm.
See, I like that we said, oh, you see Dr. Barbas is your far future, whereas it's like he's maybe 2 or 3 days out.
Yeah. Yeah.
Hours.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think, Holly, you mentioned a point earlier, maybe sometime this episode or last, that you may just want to throw out some of the NPC portraits. In the case with the orderlies in this here, I would honestly recommend tossing the other character portraits besides Dallin and Samogina and then the relevant patients as they are coming through, because I remember running this for your group and everyone felt information overload at this point with all of the orderlies and trying to say like, I'm Bryce, I'm Darla, whatever. I'm trying to flip through the right page.
Yeah.
That it can just be a little bit too much.
They're doing the Sound of Music whistle call.
Oh my God.
They're all dressed in the wallpaper. Yeah, I agree. Maybe pick Samogina, pick someone else that you think is interesting. If you like Bryce, like I like Bryce too. I think that the bag with the dead body in it is pretty cool. But like some of the ones is like, oh, I vomit up tiny gold animals. That's pretty interesting too.
Yeah, that's one of the few Chambers story tie-ins, because if they find one of the gold animals in the night floors, and then you can find that like this happens, but it's such a hyper niche manifestation that I just find it unlikely anyone's actually going to come across it for it to matter. You can probably use it elsewhere.
That's fair. Yeah.
Yeah, I feel like if you really want to like hammer in the Samagina piece, you could always have her be their escort around the Dorchester.
Yeah.
And then like at the end of it, like, oh, you seem like such nice people. I would love it if you could come to one of my meetings, encounter group.
Oh, that is a super fun clue. And that was another one that I gaslamped the hell out of one of my agents for, because everyone kind of split up. Someone went to examine the security cameras around. Oh, shit. We didn't even talk about the whole reason they're at the Dorchester is the escaped patients and the photograph of Abigail Wright has gone to see, that they are driven to investigate this one room that has this obscure message that someone has gotten away from. So some agents may go to check the security cameras. There's maybe some weird stuff you can sprinkle in there. Others try to talk with Esther Samagina in the in the break room for the orderlies and other staff. And that can be a great place that you'll have this conversation. Everything seems fairly mundane. And then that agent looks up and sees a little flyer for Encounter Group is tacked on to the local events board in the employee break room. It's immediately going to start causing those sirens to go blaring. They're going to be like, who put this here? Where is it? And Esther can just be like, oh, anyone can put things on that board, and let them feel like there is so much more suspicion kind of brewing around inside here to keep investigating. Because everything seems mundane, but they have very strong reason to know that it is not.
Yeah, it really depends. If your players are not like picking up that this is weird, you could play that like further where she goes, oh, it could be anybody. And then it is useful to have all those orderlies because then you have suspects, right?
Yeah.
Otherwise you go, it's Dallin or Samagina. And who's the rest? People. Well, okay, it's one of them, right?
There's lots of patience here. That's also, whenever they go into the records, that's a very convenient time to have some corrupted files, and the orderly is very confused as to why. And he's like, these were working fine yesterday. And so it can just seem odd. There's too many coincidences piling up.
Just a kind of a small idea is if they're checking the video cameras and they don't see anything except the shoes of the man with the briefcase walking by very briefly.
Oh, that's a fun one.
Throwback.
That guy.
I feel like we've talked about the orderlies enough. They're kind of a use them if you want ordeal, but not something that you need to feel pressured to use. However, there are a couple of key NPCs in this area that you're going to want to focus on. One of my favorites, because he's such a little fucking weirdo, is Ed Miller-Wist. It's an odd case where, as they are introduced to him, you will do a check of some kind to say like, oh, you remember who this is. Because there's not really opportunity to seed the information that he murdered his family with shotguns and he's super rich and whatnot. You just give that as an info dump in the first encounter. But he's really smarmy. He's really manipulative. And the staff just love him. They're super pleasant around him. So it's just a case of like, he's a little shit running around this school, but doesn't seem to get in trouble by the teachers.
Well, and if your agents play it right, he's going to be their favorite person in the world too, because he can get them damn near anything. He's super rich.
How do you feel about the KNIG harassment angle? Because I thought that was a little weird in writing, that he just goes after the agents for some reason.
It's another obstacle if you want to complicate things. His army of lawyers, fun fact, I just made the lawyers my players' actual names. Just like
Yeah, I think I like it more of like him getting the information makes sense, and then being a real smarmy person that's almost like, oh, I'll just let you know you don't want people knowing that you've been on meth for years. People shouldn't find out about that. And then you've got that. I mean, it's like, yeah, he's blackmailing you, but he's being a dick about it too. So it's like double fun.
Making him be super nosy and constantly trying to bargain questions for answers, and he is just the definition of, he is squid pro quo, because he's like greasy and weird too, because the agents are bound to be asking questions about the patients who escaped and why the message in this room and everything like that, and Wist will refuse to answer them unless they give some information that he deems equally as valuable. And so that's just another way that you can ratchet up some tension in terms of going through it. Generally, I have him introduce Timothy Bale pretty quickly. Bale is a fairly neutral character. You know, he is a veteran who suffers from PTSD and is very self-aware and just kind of humble and a nice person to talk with. Their warning bells should be going off if they have had any brushes with demons, because straight up Bale is the name, but he's friendly and helpful. So it, again, subverts that expectation that they don't really know how to act.
Yeah, it's a good contrast, right? Like, he's pretty benevolent completely, and Wist is just a real piece of shit, and he doesn't want anything beyond secrets. You can't offer him money. You can't offer to get him out of there. He doesn't need to. So I don't know. He's just such a fun guy. And then you have Bale by comparison, just a friendly guy writing down demon notes in his little notebook.
I think you should set up Wist in this chapter, establish that relationship with him, establish the potential of what you can get from him in exchange for whatever missions he wants you to do. Because in chapter 3, player agents aren't going to have a lot of allies because they're going to be on the run.
That's a really interesting note, and just gave me an idea too. If you want to encourage your agents to explore a little bit more, have him offer some dirt on Dallin, on one of the orderlies on Samagina, that might, I mean, for Samagina in particular, that might lead them to her house to get that weird manifestation that they may be unlikely to get into otherwise. That can be something else with Wist, is that he really only cares about information and kind of stirring the pot, so to speak.
Could be your worst enemy or a really strong ally.
Yeah.
And he's an important mix, that he is very actively relevant in both worlds, right? He is in the night world. He's Mr. Wild. They're the same person back and forth. So having somebody that can bridge that gap and get messages is one of those things that he's useful. Like Alex said, he's useful in chapter 3. He can even be useful in chapter 4.
And so after they spend some time here interacting with all of these NPCs, GMs are going to kind of have a choice of, are the agents going to want to stay in here overnight to try and continue the investigation? They're given a lot of really interesting clues that, like, Wist is kind of an asshole, but then passes that note. That's a weird thing to kind of convince them to stay after night. Bale will say that they have the people dancing in the hallways at night, and, they receive some clues that they might want to stay here and investigate. How difficult would you make it for your agents to leave this first time around? Are the staff going to be resistant to giving them their things back, or do you want to just let them go again to not give too many things away?
I feel like they should be let go. And
catch and release.
Yeah. I think that, on the one hand, it's like they don't have a lot to go on to be motivated to go back, right? Where it's like, well, nothing really points to anything here. So you might have to consider other ways to vector your players there at night through other means that we've talked about. But yeah, I don't know. Especially if this is their first stop, let them go. Because there's other cool things to see.
One of the other places that they may stop for a visit is our dear friend Barbas's house.
Barbas is weird. His house is freaking weird. Everything about him is weird. And I love that. It just persists, like, even to his house. You've got Ophelia Citri, like, in the window.
Yep.
The mail's just piled up. The interesting little postcard. The Emmeline Skian letter thing, that I kind of don't understand. This game likes to use the same names for people. And it's like you keep thinking that's going to mean something, and then it doesn't mean anything. And it's like, the name Emmeline is not common.
Yeah.
Why did you use that name again?
I think that it's intended to tap into that synchronicity that there's just
I
too
guess
many
so,
similar
yeah.
things. But in
Probably.
a practical gameplay perspective, this can make it harder for your players to keep track of notes and who is actually important. In the case with Barbas's history with Emmeline Scahan and like the assault and him getting kicked out of the police station, I would either just drop this because it's fairly unlikely agents are going to try to uncover it,
Yeah, my players didn't get into that.
or if they do, just give it to
Yeah.
them. Don't make them dig for it.
Right. Yeah, it's pretty obvious. And yeah, I agree. Who's asking? Like once you see his house, it's usually like 5 alarm, you know something's wrong. You don't care very much about a subtle warning he gave to somebody.
Yeah, I was only
Yeah.
talking about the outside of the house. The inside of the house is
Yeah.
really where the
Yeah.
weird shit.
Yeah, and inside, I mean, you've just got a lot, right? There's clues galore, and I don't know that they necessarily, for the most part, point towards things. I think when you look at some of the clues, because one of the things Barbas, as Marbas, has been doing is making basically killer dolls for Citri, because I guess why not? And like there's a mold there that can kind of signpost that he did this, but I don't know if showing the mold is enough of a clue to the players to be like, oh, there's a killer doll. Oh
It's
man,
not.
there's a killer doll.
No, my agents rolled super well on their stealth and just kept investigating. So I gave them pretty much every clue that they found. Finding Michael Whitwer's phone is really helpful because, they were intrigued by Citri. They can open the phone just as the battery dies. So that is a very helpful clue to give them. The shattered molds around the house, I tried so hard to point those out because if they would have put even a couple of them together, it would look like a little cherub face inside of it. And like there's weird stuff you can do, but if your players aren't picking it up, don't worry about it. I do recommend I kind of describe the overall chaos and how there's machine parts piled everywhere around the house. And apparently he's using like a transaxle or something like a coat rack by the stairs, and move on from there, because the lion in its dormant state looks kind of like a stripped bare umbrella or something, that I say that it looks like some kind of weird coat rack. But they don't notice anything, so don't pay strong mention to it until it really backfires on them.
How do you feel about that with them having seen the diagram that shows it? Because I agree. I usually point it out of like, yeah, it's a weird thing. But if you say like 20 years ago, you remember seeing a diagram of this thing.
Unless an agent is a mechanical engineer or like works on cars for a living, nah, fuck that. You see like one wheel and a lever that looks like it can rotate on a napkin, that's not going to matter for spotting, I don't know, some kind of death machine that they built.
The only thing about this location that kind of, I'm not sure how to feel about it, because once the players find the scribe, which is this little automaton that is continuously writing the King in Yellow play, they should feel like this is wrong, Barbas is wrong, this mission is wrong. So why would they ever go back to the Dorchester? Because at that point, it's like red flags everywhere.
And I think that this is a great opportunity to exercise alternate modes of vectoring the agents into the Dorchester at night. Usually if they find the scribe, most Delta Green agents are going to be kill it with fire. In this case, they're going to say smash it with a hammer. And that's going to be a very loud noise that would wake up the lion and then have it go nuts on them. In terms of environmental details, I mentioned that it looks like Barbas is kind of going hog wild with a pickaxe on the stairs, because there's lots of half moon chips in the staircase, in the walls and whatnot, but they don't find a pickaxe anywhere. Then if they make a noise, the lion will duck, 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 duck as it's making its steps up. The lion is super deadly as written. And, we jokingly call it Detwiller's TPK machine. But in this case, I would let it go hog wild on the agents. It's very likely to kill at least one of them, if not all of them. And when it does, treat it like they died, like the screen goes to black. Nathan had a great detail for it that it's like it's covered in fish hooks. So as it takes an agent out, it's constantly sending out these fish hook lines that are dragging their bodies sort of against its thorax and continuing to fight all of the other ones. So eventually it just looks like it's harboring all of their bodies. And then next session, they can wake up in the Dorchester after they straight up died. This can be, it's very abrupt, it's very jarring, and I have an asterisk for this because this did lead for problems with Holly later on. But it can be a failsafe to get them into the Dorchester if you really want them to get some of that information.
Yeah, and also, like, who's to say you can't use the line outside of Barbas's house if you need to get the players into the Dorchester house? It could attack anywhere.
Oh yeah, that's one of my favorite things to do is the players go, well, it's in the house, and then it breaks open the front door and just crushes
starts
their
running
car.
after them.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And then they go,
that was terrifying.
I see. I mean, I generally agree that clue-wise too, this is an interesting one because there's a lot of like the Ars Goetia might be another interesting one that gets them like. There's a lot of clues that point out how weird the Dorchester house is there.
Yeah.
Because, he's kind of been watching them. But I think, to Holly, your original point is a good one of like, if they realize the handler is compromised completely, the whole mission's compromised, you kind of got to go back to like, okay, what are you supposed to do? The answer is probably they'll have to either ask somebody else, which I've had people do, is they try and find
Delta Green.
Yeah, another handler.
And get sent to the mall.
And get sent to the mall, which we should probably talk about soon. Or, they call somebody that says, awesome, so glad you're there.
Stay put.
We need you to get Dr. Barbas into the house because he shouldn't be out and about. Like, they might send the agents in to collect him. Oh, no. It was all a ruse to get you back in the house, suckers.
Yeah, that was in my first run of this, the agents picked D-Cell as their designator. So it actually worked out really well with Agent Exeter and E-Cell. Like Holly's agent was the kind of head of their cell. So it said like, you maybe remember that name, but you never interacted with them directly. And so she called Agent Cecil from C-Cell to like let them know. C-Cell happened to be the one who tasked V to look into Barbas before, and she just said like this is an extremely dangerous situation, and tasked them with a more Delta Green investigation, which led to them going inside, getting fucked up. Or it can say like bring him to the Trivolino Mall.
Yeah.
And then, like, if they get any whiff of the agents being compromised, then they'll bite it too. But otherwise, they're just bringing Barbas to an execution or something like that. You can adjust that as needed.
Yeah, I would say handlers should be prepared that they're going to have to vector their players into the Dorchester at night via some other way that is not them being in the Dorchester at night.
Mm-hmm.
Completely agree.
All right. Do we want to cover Samagina's house as well? Because I feel like it has a lot of fun details, but it's kind of tangential. I think it's fairly unlikely that agents will explore enough to have a real reason to go in unless the GM does some pretty heavy sign pointing that would kind of lead them there.
I mean, like, do you think having the demonic name is enough for players to go after?
Whenever I ran this in the past, the players were very wary because, the briefing is weird. The Dorchester was weird. Barbas's house, extremely weird. And they were very skittish and avoidant of anything. They didn't want to go to Samagina's apartment because they weren't even thinking about it. They were thinking, what are we doing with this current shitstorm in front of us? Yeah. So because of that, Samagina sort of fell by the wayside. I'll be curious to see if that happens this time around, because again, I've made her a prominent figure in Night Floors. So I think that it's much more likely the agents are going to go visit her first.
Because in my run through, Samagina fell by the wayside.
Yeah.
There's just so much going on.
There's too much other stuff going on.
Yeah. This chapter is honestly kind of too big in terms of a sandbox because there's a lot of things that the agents are likely to start spinning their wheels on because there's too much shit going on without a clear direction and how to progress. And so I think, Holly, kind of like you were mentioning earlier, integrating actual Delta Green into this can give some direction, but of course it will be pointed in a very bad position that the agents will have to fall into.
Yeah, and usually, at least when I run it, there's a lot of hooks they can go on, but I find that players usually kind of go after one, and once they're on it, like they're hooked. You know what I mean? Like they go, okay, we got to deal with Barbas, we'll say.
Like in The Lion. Oh,
yeah, exactly. And that's exactly it, right? They go, we got to take out Barbas. Barbas leads them to get trapped in the house. They might say, oh, Samagina is the thing.
Mm-hmm.
You know, take her out. There's something wrong. You know, let's go in the mirrors. That's fun, right? Everybody loves swimming through mirrors. And where'd you pop out? Would you believe that it's a cell in the Dorchester house?
Mm.
Yeah, I think it's kind of a shame that like Samagina tends to fall to the wayside.
Yeah.
These other side quests do, because it feels to me like this chapter kind of exists. One of the reasons it exists is to kind of get the players to realize that the King in Yellow and all of its entity is like, it is out of control. Like Delta Green has lost control of this thing and it is spreading, you know?
Well, that it already has spread.
Yeah.
Because I think Samagina's house is really interesting because aside from the details that if they want to stake it out and then finding that Henry and Philip will keep leaving the house to go places, but they never come back. Only Esther comes back. And like it's a neat part of the book. I think it's really unlikely it's going to come up, so don't commit a lot of brain space to it. But then once they're inside, there are so many clues that are super interesting. Like they can find the bucket of linseed oil that they encountered from the first time they visited Manuel in the basement for Sammy pickup. That might trigger for your players. If it doesn't, they are going to be smacking themselves on the forehead when you call it out later. The whole place smells kind of odd and they can't quite place it. The tea that is made of the dead husband's melted body bathwater. Oh, I want to use it so bad. It's super good. And then there's other information too, like being able to find the flyers for Encounter Group, which I want to talk about in a second too. The costumes that she has been making and then putting into the chute in the wall that doesn't actually lead anywhere. Henry's room is weird. And then the bathroom that they really can't get into easily.
I will add, like, if you really want to showcase this stuff, if you really want the agents to come here, nothing's stopping you from changing the objective. Have that satellite phone say, I need you to investigate this. Have Wiz say, I need you to investigate this. Have Barbas say, I need you to... whatever.
Actually, that is a great idea for the Seer phone. If your players are using it to get a lot of resources, tell them they need to pick it up at Barbas's house, at Samagina's house, that like the item is waiting for you under the second chair in the dining room. And then that's how you can get them in to actually investigate in a weird way.
When the kid comes in and hands you the thing, and you notice he's wearing his mother's shoes.
Look, man, we don't ask questions and we don't shame here.
Yeah.
And then once they investigate this it's fairly likely that if they push Samagina at all, she's going to laugh maniacally, strike a match, and then set the place on fire. This is another great reference that you can have to Manuel's paintings, where if they go up the turquoise stairs, it looks like water. There's a figure standing up. And this can be a case of your agents can try to escape. It's really hard to escape this burning building. And if they don't, they pass out from the smoke and wake up in the Dorchester as another opportunity to hard vector them into the Dorchester at night. As a note for the very far future, my players totally missed Samagina's house on my first run, but I really wanted to include it. So I had this be the location they were sent when they were tasked with finding the sommelier and going into that room. I think that it worked really well. I will talk about this in the next episode.
Nice. Good use of using previous chapters in later chapters.
Hey, it's almost like we're going to talk about that a lot next time because there's not much in the next chapter. Anyway. One other thing that's in here is Encounter Group, which, as Holly was mentioning, Delta Green has lost control of the King in Yellow influence. And if the agents manage to go to Encounter Group, it's delightfully weird. It can be a great place to vector in replacement characters. I wouldn't make it as difficult for them to go inside as all that. Like, don't just have it end immediately every time, but just say, like, listen, you're either in or you're out.
I had an idea just now that, if your players have that fade to black moment, you pass out from smoke inhalation, the lion gets you, they wake up in encounter group, and when encounter group breaks, it's the Dorchester. Like, it's all the patients from the Dorchester, and you're in the Dorchester.
Yeah.
I like that. I think that that's a smoother opening that blends into more confusion, that it starts very mundane, and there are people around them who are treating them normally. And it's like, hey, you fell asleep. And then going on from there. I like that a lot.
Yeah, it's great for missed clues too. If they just didn't hit something and they go to encounter group, somebody can just straight up say the missed clue. It's, a nice little catch-all. And it's weird. And they can stop anytime they want. And then everyone just goes home, which is super creepy.
And it's also a case that you can see there are multiple encounter groups around. Like, especially Alex mentioned that they can go back to the McAllister, have flyers for local branches in New York. Like, really highlight that, oh, this shit is everywhere and it's getting regular people involved, that it should really increase some senses of dread. It can be hard to use, so don't count on being able to use it. My players totally passed it, but if they do, it can be a great source of fun.
Great RP scenarios that you can have in person if you do want to get a little fancy and get out the silver robes and masks. That's what I did.
I do like that.
Just don't get mugged in the stairwell.
Let's see. And for the next location, we'll find that there is a ton of detail about Dr. Dallon's residence. It's even mentioned in the initial index in the front of the book. And you can't find it. There's nothing there. It doesn't fucking matter.
I mean, some of it, I think my guess would be the intent is that Dr. Friend is really a King in Yellow attemptee. So he's bringing in that other side of himself, right? Like he's mimicking a lot of what the King in Yellow does, where the locations related to him disappear. He's trying to make that encounter group does. He has his own little kingdom. And yet he can't figure it out, right? Like we'll cover Dr. Friend more, but he doesn't have the juice. He wants the juice, but he doesn't have it. So I think that's probably part of why Dr. Dallon is so strange, is that Dr. Friend side of him is just kind of taking over. But yeah, I mean, I don't mind too, just being like, yeah, there's nothing there, man. Yeah, it's weird. Great. I don't have to spend a session describing you casing a house. Go somewhere else.
Related to what we discussed in a previous episode, I really love Xander's suggestion to have them find the bookshop here.
Yeah.
Like, the building seems continuous and they find some steps down to the bookshop. It's all that they're going to come across. They can't find Dallon's residence. Moving on. Another location that has quite a bit of detail and pretty much just leads to a bad end for your agents is the Trivolino Mall. Maybe this is the repercussion if you have to get Delta Green actually involved.
Yeah, that was a tough one. We struggled with that one when I played it, because you want to do what DG's telling you to do. If you're playing it by the book of, like, I'm a good DG agent and I don't want to be killed for this.
So the mall essentially is that they get told, hey, come to the mall. We'll debrief.
Oh, gather all the evidence first.
Get everybody here. I mean, it's another, all your alarm bells ring is get everybody, bring them all here. And they'll walk in and it's like, boy, this looks like a kill zone, huh?
Yeah.
On a live zone.
As they wander right into the big red X on the floor.
We joke about this here, but this actually led to a lot of contention and frustration in my first run of this, because Holly's character was a very straight-laced Delta Green agent who was trying to be responsible. And the Trivolino Mall is an example of what I say in this, that you could honestly run Impossible Landscapes as a Call of Cthulhu scenario, because the agents are actively punished for trying to be Delta Green in this. And it's hard to showcase the consequences in this case, because the consequences are lethal. So the best that you can really do is set this up to be extremely foreboding. I think that the details with the dancing children and the golden, basically pillowcases going around, it's fucking weird and unsettling. No one else is noticing it except the agent. So you should be creating a lot of bad vibes. Additionally, kind of on that note, I made some handouts for the Golden Boy burglaries as if they were written as a Phenomenex web page article that's actually by Roger Caroon and Thomas Manuel. The anagrams for their names were the usernames on there that I highly recommend using because I find this is one of the coolest, creepiest little tangents in this campaign that is super hard to find otherwise. And I just kind of wanted my agents to get a fun, spooky story as a handout and then move on to keep on pace with the rest of the campaign because I don't see them digging too deep into it otherwise. Anything else about Trivolino?
Oh, it's so lethal. And the highest corrupted person is going to get like dragged right into it too, as written. They're going to be like, is that a kid over there? Let me go see. Walk, 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 walk. Oh, hello, 6 Delta Green agents with guns. What a pleasure to see you.
Machine guns.
So if your agents are really into doing the right thing and are willing to die to do the right thing, I mean, cool. I think the mall would be a really cool scene to be like, yeah, you all get gunned down and now you still didn't get out. Like, you failed at your Delta Green goal of containing yourself. What do you do now?
You get gunned down and you wake up in the Dorchester.
Honestly, for that, related to something we talked about last time, this is where, because y'all were dead set on going into the Trivolino Mall, that I tried to set up some contingencies, like the Golden Children would give warnings, like making machine gun gestures with their arms. And then once the gunfight started, I am not doing the recommended thing and just giving them free shots. Like, they're going to miss the first time around to give you a chance to like duck and cover. But then the person with the highest level of intrigue in the Carcosan mythos is going to find a door that's ajar with the light on. That will rush them into the bookshop because I think it can be an important moment to demonstrate that the night world is safer than the real world for them at this point, that it can be a place of refuge. However, they can only leave the bookshop by going into the Dorchester at night. It's the only place that these doors are going because it's sort of the next stop on their journey deeper into all of this.
Nice.
But let's say they don't do any of that. Let's say that they visit Barbas's house to get Cetri's phone and then go, you know what? I never liked Boston. It's too cold anyways. Let's go to Las Vegas and go to Cetri's house. Why? All I have to say for this, it's a cool section, but just why?
I mean,
yeah, my group skipped this. It's just...
yeah, I've seen Greenbox Gaming is the only one I've seen follow up on it, and they went and they dealt with it, and then they went back to Boston, and I was like, okay, that's a fine, like...
Why not just move it to Boston?
Yeah.
I wonder if the only reason there is just to have Whitward not be like so obviously right next to the thing, you know, like he was called in, I guess. But yeah, it's kind of strange.
I don't know. In my first run, I had Miss Cetri. She taught one of the agent's kids piano classes. And so that was a little backstory tie-in there. And she lived in Philadelphia. So at least like it was a drive. They still didn't even go that far because, again, there's too many important things going on between Dorchester and Barbas. Something that I plan to do with this is I run this as a separate side scenario whenever we don't have all of the players present. I call it an intermission. Get it? I love puns. But the players can make new agents. They go in, they fight against the Chucky doll, maybe go into the tunnels, and the thing collapses behind them. Then if they want, these can be a source of replacement agents later on if needed, or they can just encounter them at some point later. But it's cool to use as a standalone. I just don't think it fits in the actual campaign.
So the only reason why I see that it's in Las Vegas is the fact that it kind of calls back to the airline ticket that people find in the night floors.
Yeah.
Boy, it's a good thing Things like Photoshop and Affinity Photo exist.
Well, and with all things too,
They took a plane from Boston to Boston. That's why the
Yeah.
Why would he do that?
Boston.
That's insane.
we're probably missing something too, where like Cetri is the demon of gambling or something. I wouldn't be shocked if there's just things we don't.
I don't know. Let's confirm that.
No,
right
she's
now.
not.
Not that I can see. The spirit signifies indiscretion, telling lies, and general untruth. Neat.
Okay.
That's some demon behavior.
Cetri is a great prince of hell and reigns over 60 legions of demons. He causes men to love women and vice versa, and can make people bear themselves naked as desired. See, I just consider Cetri like the
Problematic.
demon of thought. Like T-H-O-T there.
Oh,
Yeah. Anyways, let's go visit the Dorchester at night, because I don't have many nice things to say about Cetri's house here. Depending on how they get vectored into the Dorchester at night, your players will have very different experiences and desires to engage with different elements of it. If you have them stay in the Dorchester at night and then things just change, they may continue exploring or be more interested in talking with the other patients that they discover. If you've had this happen, please let me know, because I have not had this experience. My players, as I mentioned, got ganked by the lion, and then whenever they woke up, they were in the Dorchester. Something that I did that might be fun for other GMs is I had the original residents of the McAllister all be patients in the Dorchester that they never really left after they burned the McAllister building.
Yeah, nice.
And they were all elected orderlies for Dr. Friend. So they had kind of positions of authority because they had a lot of experience. Roger Caroon thought that creative writing exercises would allow the patients to exercise a lot of their thoughts and allow some illusions to be dispelled. And also it gives an excuse for the little black notebook that Ed Wist has and that Mr. Wilde has for the Reputation book. Each of the agents will wake up in a bed, in a cell, and they have this little black notebook on their person. And if they open it and read through it, it describes their entire life of Delta Green from their first mission onwards. And they can sort of flip through it or just skip to the end where there's the last writing. And then on the previous page, I made this as a handout where the previous page is in their voice a description of them discovering Barbas's house, investigating, and then describing the hectic combat before they were killed. And then there's crayon scratching everything out. And then the following page is, I woke up that morning with tons of hot chicks all around, and we decided we should check out that Dorchester place. And it's a polite illusion. That way it can play into Friend really emphasizing that their whole secret agent thing is just a fantasy. Don't you understand? That doesn't happen to regular people.
Yeah, 100%. He immediately starts gaslighting. He's the best at it.
Yeah, I took the German accent from you because it felt
just
very
fun.
Indiana Jones bad guy. That, yeah, why not?
Well, it is. It's that stupid like dreamlike logic. Like, of course, the Dr. Friend is some Freud wannabe. Like, oh yes, we can figure all this out. It's like you don't know anything. Like, he's so stupid. It's great.
Mm.
This chapter has so many great characters. I will note though, his orderly being named Mr. Ed. I don't usually mind the names being reused, but that one is so damn close, like proximity wise to Ed Myler Wist, and they're not the same guy. So that's like the one part where I'm like, I wish you just chosen any other name for this guy.
I think that's something GM should feel encouraged to change.
Yeah.
There are a lot of interesting NPCs around here. Let's focus on them before we talk about the actual mechanics of exploring the Dorchester, because I think it's an interesting shift from the night floors. Dr. Maximo Friend, as Nathan mentioned, like he's very much kind of a Freud wannabe and thinks he knows so much more than he does. In my runs, I make him obsessed with trying to get more information about the King in Yellow because he actually would be an incredibly potent candidate for king. and would actually subvert a lot of the narratives about them, to the point that the powers that be of Carcosa are keeping him isolated and locked away.
Yeah.
He is already exposed to it, but would kind of taint the waters, so to speak, if he were to actually get what he wants. Of course, he will be very generous to any patients who tried to give him what he wants, and like will often gaslamp them into saying it's like, oh no, that isn't real, only this is. Go ahead and tell me some more about that.
Yeah, if we look at it from the narrative side, he's missing his phantom, right? He looks at the king in yellow and all he sees is the king, and thinks that if he just does what that is, he gets all this power. But he's missing the juice, so to speak, not just the patsu, but the actual power of the phantom that makes this more than just his own little way station.
Mm-hmm. And I think that making Friend seem contradictory and unstable and, dare I say, kind of insane in your portrayals of him can help to signify the general state of the Dorchester at night around them. Because I really tried to emphasize that you cannot get out of here like the night floors, because this isn't just an apartment building. Like, you are not the boss here. Dr. Friend is. And you have to play by his rules. You can have the faceless soldier orderlies enforce this, or just have him change the world around them that suddenly they are in full body restraints if they start misbehaving or like spit in his face or something like that. Like, give them evidence that he can shape the world around them in a way they haven't encountered before.
Yeah. And that's a good clue that the sanity is overrated, right? Like, pretty much all the residents of the Dorchester at night are pretty chill.
Mm-hmm.
Like, they're like, no, we kind of know what's going on. We're fine. So you get that really fun inversion where it's like, no, the insane person is in charge. Everybody sane is just kind of trying to survive.
Yeah. And there is a list of various other NPCs that you can include, some with more detail than others. Some of them really backfired. I'm trying to remember who it was. It was the one who made all of the origami figures that Holly just fucking hated. And I just remember you insulted her so much, like, oh, you didn't get your invitation.
Oh, yeah.
And
I
like
was
caused
mean.
her to just go into a
Lose
full
her
rage.
shit. Yeah.
Yeah, Cloris Gareth Vance. Some of the NPCs are more or less relevant. One that I had a lot of fun with is Leland Fuller. He is the Delta Green agent who was operating beside Emmett Mosby to translate the original Duchem Bureau files. And I made him a bigger player in this because Mr. Wilde is essential for giving a bunch of information. But if players didn't want to interact with him, I wanted to give them an alternate option. So with Leland, I had him be committed by DG after he read the full Duchem Bureau, King in Yellow. He constantly sees the writing of it everywhere. Once he was there, someone visited and gave him a bottle of whiskey that he shattered and stabbed himself in the eyes over and died while there. But he never really left. So whenever they find him, he's blind, still has glass in his face, and yet despite his ruined eyes, he constantly sees the text of the King in Yellow around him. He fucking hates Dr. Friend, and thanks to his Delta Green training, doesn't ever engage with him. So he and Friend are diametrically opposed. And if the agents mention anything about DG, he will be a sympathetic asset that they can work with. He is a candidate to be the author since he sees the play all the time. But God help you, if you let him write the play, he's going to burn everything down and the world is going to end because he is very much a burn it all down type mindset. Are there any other NPCs that you all really like to use here in the Dorchester at night?
Asa.
Yep.
Yeah, I
Totally.
just love having him show up and be smarmy.
How do you portray his personalities or his breakdowns and things like that? I think it can be a lot of fun.
Well, obviously he will always act like he knows more than the PCs because he did build Dorchester House. So he's gonna hold that over the players as they are desperate to escape. And obviously, he's never going to give give it to them because he's a villain.
Yeah.
I think like Asa's probably the most. He's not the. I guess he is the strongest villain that the players will actually ever get to interact with.
I think he's certainly the most vilified character in this
Yeah.
campaign. Everyone is going to fucking hate him at some point.
Well, that makes the Dorchester a useful time if you want to humanize him.
Mm-hmm.
With the way he's written, where he's lost and confused, like whatever part of him that is here doesn't understand what he's been doing.
Yeah, he's convinced that he was dreaming and tries to keep
Yeah.
deluding himself because he cannot face the full
Right.
weight of his own actions.
Yeah, well, I mean, this is him at his sanest, and it's not good for him, so I see why he wants to be insane most of the time.
Eventually, the agents will encounter Mr. Wilde, who is a focal NPC in both this campaign and the broader King in Yellow mythos, who knows all manner of secrets, both about this world and any number of others. Whenever my agents will meet Mr. Wilde, I typically have him require some sort of favor from them in order to introduce them to King Bale, as well as any other reputation-related tidbits that you want to expound on.
Yeah, I had a personal mission from Wild to rescue Agent Vega from deep within the library.
Okay. I straight up cut Whitwer and Vega and all of that stuff in my run, mostly because I didn't know how to use him, and my agents never really picked up on that. I'm curious, how did you roleplay and integrate him after they found him?
So basically, you'll need some more context, but like I plan my finale to be a battle royale for those who are vying for control, and Agent Vega would be a proxy for Wild. So after Wild gets Agent Vega, he's gonna take him to some other room and basically like train him to be the proxy.
Yeah.
So that way the NPC's not just sticking around.
Yeah, that's kind of what I did with Wild in my campaign, is that he was really trying to get people he can manipulate and control and put them into the key roles of the play, whether it be the author or the Phantom or the King or what have you, that like he wants to be the Phantom, but not actually have that responsibility. He just wants to be able to control the Phantom too, as an ultimate mastermind.
But I would say the library, getting the players in there with the quest is no problem.
Yeah, you have a lot of flexibility in what quest or favor that Wild wants to task them with. There's lots of examples and options that are in like a map made of skin. You can pull in an example. This is where I had him want to get the file for Elmer Lozette out of Dr. Dallin's library. This is just to get the dirt on Lozette, that he is in a very nasty relationship with actually his mom. And then that leads to dirt Wild can use to manipulate Elmer later on. Regardless, I think it's a great set piece to have the agents kind of break into Dr. Friend / Wild's office, see the bookcase that's full of books with the yellows lined up disconcertingly like the yellow sign, and then start digging. In my run, I had Michelle Van Fitz be sort of the librarian as one of the orderlies there, that she gave them the clue to start digging, because otherwise it's a bit obscure unless they are directly told that. Once they're inside, you know, it's kind of like Night Floors again, some kind of infinite corridors, big books, more organized than the bookshop. There's lots of freedom to give whatever set piece descriptions that you want. Something that I did is that I changed the paper tiger to an ink panther. I didn't really care for how the paper tiger was written, so I made this more representative of Wild's black cat, who, you know, I have scratch and attack Wild at some point during their conversation, and they can hear it yowling down the corridors of this library.
Oh, that's a really great homage.
It's teasing something ahead of time so that they keep hearing the cat. They might see, as the environment is getting darker around them, that there are some blank papers that are on the floor, but it's not all of them. It's almost like a trail of blank pages down some of the corridors. And what I had is that they kind of came across a Carcosan museum So then at some point, the library shelves turned into specimen displays, things in jars. If you've been to the Smithsonian, I had one of the sky whales skeletons from the final chapter suspended from the ceiling above the agents, and like crazy displays all around them from histories that didn't exist. And eventually they get into a series of basically just steel filing cabinet shelves. As they're searching, they can find Lozette's file. And about the time that they do, it's getting dark and there is a deep growling coming from behind them. Players can roll alertness and then perhaps dodge as this panther is going to try to pounce at them. And I generally give the first attack as a freebie. I may roll low damage if it does end up hitting them, because I want them to get pounced at, then try to scramble and run away. Because this ink panther, as I have in this here, absorbs the ink from any pages or documents that it is nearby, the darker that it gets, which allows it to grow larger and larger. And as it pounces near the agents, it sucked all of the ink out of Lozette's file.
Huh?
So this becomes a puzzle-like encounter for the agents that they need to get this ink panther exposed to light while the file is also near it, to cause the ink to flee from the panther back into the file and then run like hell to get out of there.
I love a good puzzle battle in RPGs. It just breaks up the monotony of rolling for damage.
Yeah, it was really interesting because it wasn't a straight up fight. It was a great game of, pun not necessarily intended, cat and mouse, for them to not only get away from this hunting predator that's getting stronger by the minute, but also like what they ended up doing was a great bait and switch where so one of the agents gets a claymore. He's already injured and can't run very well. So they have piles of books around him. He's laying on the claymore and they have poured lantern oil all over this woolly mammoth display behind him. And as he's there kind of making noise like a wounded animal, the panther comes around, leaps at him. He twists the sword up and rolled a crit success. So yeah, the panther impales itself on this sword. They light the mammoth on fire and it causes the whole library to catch on fire, but they get the ink back in the file and then run away. It was extremely cinematic and I had a lot of fun with it. I think that it's a very fun change to the paper tiger.
That sounds like a lot of fun. For my Paper Tiger experience, my agents went in and I think it was really by the book where they tried to just light fires to keep it away from them because they kind of knew it was weak to fire.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. But it was really stressful. I'm a little worried that that's a little too similar to the Whisper Labyrinth, where the goal again is to keep the fire alive.
Mm-hmm.
What do you think?
I agree. I just thought that it was too quick for players to figure out what they needed to do and then just do it and succeed, that there wasn't enough of a challenge in there for them.
Mm-hmm.
What I would be tempted to do if you are running this closer to the book is maybe do a secret luck roll every time that the players are lighting some kind of a fire or moving through it. And if they fail, it's dropping cinders, it's dropping ashes or something, which could set all of the papers on the floor on fire around them. And so as they are trying to ward the paper tiger away, it is creating more and more hazard for them to set the entire library on fire, to then cause another kind of race against time for them to still fulfill this task they've been given by Wild with multiple threats happening. And so then they need to rush. They feel that pressure that can lead for some exciting gameplay. There can be lots of exploration that can be done here in the Dorchester at night, although it doesn't work the same way as it did in the night floors. We mentioned before with concerns about players kind of metagaming. I know that I need to fail this sand roll in order to, go on this way. And players got really frustrated in my first run because they kept trying to escape and it never went anywhere. And I think that if you, as a GM, have a group of players who are just focused on escaping, opening every door, trying to do something to get out of their own agency, don't roleplay it all in real time.
Yeah.
See what's happening and zoom out and say, you are doing this for weeks, months, and so on. And just say that, like, this is clearly not an option.
Yeah, they're going to figure out they're not going to find their way out. And that's one of the, I don't want to say problems, but this is the most railroady this gets in this kind of area, right? Where it's like, you just have to talk to Wild, you just have to talk to King Bale. And at that point, you're just on a roller coaster of, okay, now you're in the theater, you watch the theater, it's vague, and it tells you how the King in Yellow's like making the world and eating it through the patsu or something. And then they go, and he's like, aha, we must drink the patsu to escape. And
I'm
don't
curious
understand the
though,
patsu.
because Lex, you mentioned removing patsu in a future run.
Mm-hmm.
How were you going to do that?
I don't know, make it something that the clown is holding. They need to put on the clown's mask or something like that, and just let that be the MacGuffin that they need to chase. I love the encounter where Friend can have someone strapped into a full restraint chair, and then you get the needle horror in their eye withdrawing the patsu.
I like that scene.
But like, my players were super confused. It's a weird name that has no meaning or relevance. It doesn't fucking go anywhere outside of this one part of one chapter. It feels
a reference to something?
It is a reference.
Okay. So
yes.
I was just going to say, if I can only levy one criticism at this campaign, it is that it feels like sometimes they are just jamming in every single reference to The King in Yellow by Robert Chambers, the fiction that they've written. And it's like, it doesn't matter if it makes sense. We're just going to throw it in there so people can point at the screen like they're Leonardo DiCaprio in that meme, you know? I don't know. That's my 2 cents. What is the patsu, Nathan? Educate us.
If you would like to avoid spoilers for the Sense of the Sleight of Hand Man, skip ahead to 1:47:30, or skip forward like 90 seconds.
I mean, you're pretty much right. But instead of going to Chambers' work, you're going to the previous Sense of a Sleight of Hand Man. The patsu was what Nyarlathotep was feeding to Randolph Carter to basically daze him and bring him further into the King in Yellow, right? Like it was kind of like a mind altering, mind reducing agent. So if we're going from there, this is one of those of when they escape by drinking this, they're really not escaping at all. They're going Inception wise one layer deeper, right? And I've heard different explanations for what patsu is. I've seen like it's basically secrets, right? Like it's kind of like a distilled King in Yellow juice that boy oh boy Dr. Friend wants to use but doesn't understand how, and you know you kind of end up there. But it's a MacGuffin. I think Lex you'd be 100% fine just being like, there's something else you need to do to get out. The only thing is, I'd be curious how you're going to handle the lethality of the clown, because when the agents are trying to escape, there is a clown that dances after them that if it touches them, it explodes them, basically. Yeah. And that's pretty damn lethal.
I have a couple of critiques I can levy about this campaign, and that is one of them. So we're going to kind of skip over some sections to talk about that right now, because, eventually they are going to watch this whole performance by the clown with King Bale possibly going, this is important because some bullshit. There's other bullshit here. This is so interesting and engaging while you describe the clown dancing and a little streamer going around in circles. And then eventually he hops up on stage. They pull patsu out of the paper dragon that he's been flailing around and drink it. And then he disappears. Then it's up to the agents to try and drink it, but oh no, it shrinks down to nothing. So you need to wait for it to fill back up before you can drink some Patsu Baja Blast to then get back in the real world. But oh no, the clown creepily sits up and starts chasing after you. And this chase scene is so strangely written in the book because It's written to encourage GMs to kind of improvise all of this random bullshit that's happening and the world is shifting around them so much. We alluded to this in our episode on chases before, where Alex and I were strongly recommending to just plot this out ahead of time. Add the weird details in advance so that the agents will feel like they are running through these shifting locations, but you, the GM, are not wasting active brain power trying to make it up. As written, the clown is constantly chasing after the agents, and if it touches them, they explode.
Yeah. Whoever's holding the Patsu, importantly, right? That's what gives your agents the real chance to survive. So the way this is written is locationality doesn't matter, because that's not like you running from the clown. That's just an athletics check. If you say you run into the backstage and you do something, it doesn't really matter. The point is, whoever has the canister, that's who the clown is going after. Then they do a contested roll of dodge or I think athletics against 45% as the clown, who's only kind of good at dancing, which I do like. And then the clown would need to succeed twice in order to catch up to the agent and pop them. So that's kind of that push and pull of like, your agents should probably go, hey, this thing's only coming after the guy with a canister. Let's leapfrog this around a little bit so it doesn't kill us. But maybe signposts that attacking it, like I've had agents try and hit it, in whatever they hit it with just bursts into like a bloody spray.
I tried to tackle it.
Yeah, exactly. Like that's the one I probably don't kill them on, just because that's a little too mean. But you get this idea, like, yeah, you can't touch this thing. Like, this is beyond you guys.
This was one of the few encounters in my run of it that was an absolute shit show. And I strongly recommend GMs toss all of this stuff out of the book and focus on having some kind of cinematic chase and encounter that works best for them. Because, okay, Nathan, you alluded to the push-pull, that they need to keep running athletics or something against the clown's dance. The clown's also getting bigger after them, which matters. Yeah. And not then really. As they are chasing after it, if they keep passing and the clown keeps passing and they fail and the clown fails, it led to this constant push and pull back and forth that fucking dragged on and on, because guess what? It also takes a luck roll for the Patsu to be filled up before they can drink it. And I lost track at like 6 or 8 rolls, and like the players were getting bored. I'm trying to maintain tension and they're just, it was... Holly,
if you
please
get
cut me off.
die rolls,
My advice is, if you are not going to pursue the lethality of this scenario because it feels cheap or unfair, create a dynamic scene, and then eventually, when it feels appropriate, just the clown fails. Goodbye. you are free to go.
Yeah, I like having like the Patsu. I probably wouldn't make them do like a luck roll, right? I might just have it be an even odd sort of thing, right? Like that is to say, on even rounds, it's full. Odd rounds, it's empty, like kind of mimicking that
I thought
breathing.
you meant even odd. And I'm like, if only that was on the same
if only it was a
percentage as a luck
50-50.
roll.
No, it's a frequency sort of thing rather than luck. Because, yeah, I agree. That's a lot of die rolls, honestly. Like, that's the only problem I have with the chase is exactly that. If you've got 4 players all rolling, it's a lot. But in theory, it should only be the one person with the canister rolling it all against the clown. So that should go fairly quick.
Not whenever that person is just a constant push and pull. Like in my case, it was one agent who always failed the luck roll past the chase thing. So the clown is just constantly like right after them, but they couldn't get to the Patsu thing. And sometimes RNG is good. Sometimes as a GM, you need to make a cinematic decision and roll with it from there, because sometimes the dice are not in your favor.
Yeah, I would just cut like the luck roll.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'd agree.
I think that you can do a lot more by making this just a really, dare I say, thrilling, intense chase with a lot of horror elements and shit going on around the agents, that it stays interesting and engaging, but it doesn't come down to a math rock battle. Something that I'll probably do, since I am going to cut the Patsu, I might have them take the clown's mask And as they're looking at the underside of it, it's like a mirror, but it's showing different distorted faces. And whenever it shows their face, they need to put it on. And then from there, they kind of disappear into it. The mask falls down. They need to keep going again. Just something like that. Maybe they pick up the paper dragon and they have to make the yellow sign with it and then douse it over their heads. It swallows their body whole. You pick up the stick and then keep going with it.
Yeah. The main point being that they're engaging with diving deeper.
As long as you can signpost it, right? Because the drinking of the pots was signposted by Wild, going like, look. But if you're going to change the method of escape, you got to have Wild demonstrate that.
And that's where Bale is the first one to do it, that you can just say, this is what you got to do. And then the clown gets up.
Yeah.
In terms of this too, where Alex, you said you tried to tackle it. I had a couple of people in my group that like, I'm going to fucking drop kick this clown. I'm just going to tackle it. And I kind of ran out of, do I just make it wrestle with them? I tried to emphasize that it's growing, so eventually they cannot win this match. Just the whole thing was kind of a shit show. Alex, in one of our previous discussions, you had a note that I really liked, that the clown is radiating heat as they get close to it, that as they even get closer to the fabric, it's like hot metal, that they don't want to try to touch it, and they can get that instance that it touching them is probably not good, though they just don't know how bad.
Yeah, I like that.
Yeah, I think that's the key.
You always got to signpost these things, right?
Mm-hmm.
No one loves an insta-kill with no warning.
Yeah.
And you can also, if you're worried, because this previous part's very on rails, take this moment to be like, you see the clown, and let's dive back into a memory in your life when you've been the most terrified of something. That's what the clown feels like. You know that getting near this thing is death. Let the players define what that is like for their character, because then you can steal it later in other scenes. But yeah, you need to signpost. I agree. And if they tackle it, okay, it does nothing, and it seems like something happens. Maybe it doesn't kill them the first time. If somebody wants to keep running at it, if you tackled it a second time, you probably would have just popped, but you were smart enough not to do that.
So anyways, however you try to resolve this chase, I think that it'll depend on sort of what vibes with the GM. And this is a part you're going to have to spend some time workshopping it. Do not run this as written in the book, because you will very likely have a bad time. But then afterwards, once they get out in some way, because they've got to get out, because that's how the story goes. This is like the narrowest part of a bottleneck where it's just one drip at a time. They can wake up at some point in the real world. As written, they wake up in this random house with a demon sigil, and there's the clockwork child delivers their invitations. I would just say that end the session with them all officially kind of ending, whether they pop or they drink the patsu, what have you, because then you can start the next session with a blank slate to do whatever. You can have them wake up anywhere that's convenient, especially if you want them to find some clues in the proximal area nearby. In terms of the overall lethality of the chase, I hate insta-ganks. I think it is bullshit if an agent flat dies because they got touched by a not angel. And instead, what I would have them do is the agents who succeed wake up immediately, wherever they do. The agents who got popped wake up a few seconds after. But in those few seconds, they were in the Dorchester for months longer. And they had to make another deal with Wild for them to repeat this process again. And so that can just give your agents, you can have the KNIG lawyers give them a task that they know they have to perform, or else they're going to get shunted back into the Dorchester or worse.
Sure.
And that's a way that you can continue the story with a cost that isn't just introducing a new character. Because I find character death at this point is kind of lame.
I think I'll differ slightly in that I think there's enough in the chase, there's enough clues and whatnot, and it's not instantly killing for the most part. as it is, you have to like really fail and intentionally like not get rid of the canister, at least from when I've run it. And this is, I think it's interesting that you don't want death at this point. This is probably the last part that I like the death, because there's still enough time to get them involved with the new character.
I think I just find the pop the balloon method cheap. That it is one touch. Someone is going to have to get touched to see the consequences. And by then, it's done.
I would agree.
I just blow off a limb.
Yeah, it's a lethality, so it's not
right?
instantly killing necessarily. But I do agree, like, kind of when we said, like, Alex tackled it, right? That's an example. I'm not using a lethality roll, because
your description
that would be
was pretty
a real
fucked
dick
up.
move.
That it made me think twice. It's like your entire body becomes covered in these like boils that start to pop and with pus.
And weeping Patsu. Yeah.
And then I think another agent was like licking that off my character.
Yes. Which, I think there's things you can do in the fight that make it clear, like, this is a bad idea, but also open up avenues like that. Like, oh, I'm bleeding Patsu now. Get that arm over here, baby.
Dinner's ready.
But, I do agree, though, that like this, towards lethality wise, it gets really tough in part 3 and 4 that we'll cover to introduce new characters.
Mm-hmm.
Usually, if I do have somebody die during this chase, I like to have them be related to the previous bonds or agent in some fashion. They could be a bond of the agent. At this point, there's no reason they have to be in Delta Green. Like, try and maintain that thread of a story through here. Because otherwise, it is a little like, okay, we're halfway through. Here's Bill from down the hallway. Hi, guys. What's with this king in yellow?
Let's spend a session just onboarding them. Yeah. I agree that if you're going to bring someone in, they're already involved. I like incorporating someone else's bonds, because bottom line, you want all of this to matter to each of the agents.
Yeah, honestly, this is the last thing I'll say on lethality. I don't even know how you would introduce a Delta Green agent to this group, because in the next chapter, they're on the run from Delta Green.
Yeah. I think your only option is someone from V-Cell. I think that that's the reason why Michael Whitworth does not have a portrait and has very little information, because he's tentatively a replacement PC along with everyone else in V-Cell. It's not really mentioned in the text itself, but that's just what I'm inferring based on possibility. And then once they wake up, there are some more details technically at the end of this chapter, which we are going to discuss at the beginning of our next discussion here. Overall, though, is there any GM advice that you would want to impart for people who are still listening and not really tired, unlike the four of us right now?
What's that? The phrase of, hold on tightly, let go easily. That's, I think, important for this chapter, is be ready to pivot. And if your players go, we're not going to the Dorchester. Okay. You know what information you need to get them. You just got to figure out how to do that. Use these scenes and settings here as inspiration for that. You'll have them on the run in no time.
Yeah.
There's so many highly lethal opportunities in this scenario that I would just say, like, going with Alex, signpost, make sure this isn't something that, like, it's an insta kill.
This chapter goes from a slightly too large sandbox into a much too tight bottleneck. And your players can feel very frustrated at hitting hard walls and feeling like they are sitting through cutscenes of you talking with yourself or just shuttling them from one stop to another down the Dorchester Express line.
Yep.
Try to work with your players and stay flexible. Give them opportunities to explore in the Dorchester. If they are fighting to get their way out, don't force them to beat their heads against the wall until some Patsu comes out. have them open a door to meet Mr. Wild and give
Yeah.
them that information and guidance sooner rather than later.
Just give him the patsu.
The night floors is the great place to explore. This one can feel like a prison, which can feel very frustrating for your players in comparison. So let them explore a lot, get into the Dorchester at night at their own pace, but then the Dorchester at night should be 1 or 2 sessions at most. I think I ran it for 3 or 4 sessions, and it was too much because I didn't know how to deal with my agents not doing what they, air quotes, needed to do in order to further the plot. And I do not recommend doing that for other GMs.
Yeah, good advice. Get an idea of what you want your agents to do. Because I agree. There's too much at night. Like, if you try and do everything, they're just gonna sit there and go, I feel like I'm trapped in an asylum. Good.
Oh, there's a reason for that.
Yeah,
but-
you are. But is that fun?
Yeah, let them get that experience for a few minutes, but don't let them feel trapped and frustrated, because they're going to direct that frustration at you, the GM, because there is just a difference between player knowledge and GM meta knowledge of what is actually happening that doesn't translate at the table in a beneficial direction.
Well put.
For the chase with the clown, definitely check out our episode on chases to make it more thrilling and tense.
Bow, 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 bow. We need to make mugs with that on it.
Come to Chaosium Con, get a sticker that just says thrilling intense.
This brings our second chapter discussion of Impossible Landscapes to a close. In the next episode, we'll discuss the world waiting for the agents in the next chapter, like a map made of skin. I love that name. It's so tasty. The incoming threat of Static Protocol, and welcoming their stay at the Hotel Broadalbin. Be sure to check out the show notes of this episode for links to purchase a copy of this campaign for yourself, Bud's RPG review overview for the sections we discussed, other RPG resources we mentioned, as well as an invite to our lab's Discord server to discuss more reanimations. We also post these episodes and resources to our Patreon that's free to follow, or if you like, you can make a charitable donation to help us stock more copies of Leroy and Jean at the H. West Memorial Mortuary and Laboratories. And we would like to extend a special shout out of appreciation to our Patreon interns, Beth, Xander, Sawyer, Scott, Chance, Jan, Born to be Wrong, JS, Weston, Allison, Sick Daniel, Oliver, Cableman, Corey, and Nick. Thank you all so very much for supporting us. So until next time, thanks for listening to RPG Reanimators.
Where your games can die.
Or live.
In the Dorchester. there's this homeless guy who creeps around my neighborhood. He's wearing like a big gold outfit, like a cloak made of garbage. It's all messed up. I can't see his face. He watches me. But whenever I go out to see him, he's gone. Anyone else see him?